Hey, and good morning, good evening. Oh, and welcome to Dreamy Dreamland with Sensei Al Bob. I am your griot, your sensei. And what is a griot? A griot is a storyteller, right? So, what do I do on this channel? I tell you stories that give you the opportunity, the cadre, to listen and create for yourself your own perspective, your own intuition, your own point of view instead of just taking. I've been watching, so I'm here at my friend's house who I've been taking care of. 1 minute and 17 seconds, and there's AI again. And so um, I've had the great opportunity, and I really appreciate it, to um, get from out in the middle of nowhere, the middle of nowhere woods. There's nobody around them, can't get affected, and so spring is coming, and soon it'll be here, and I will be, living under a tarp, right, and I'll be exposed to a lot of vitamin D and a lot of things that'll keep me healthy, and that's good. But right now, I have the access to watch cable, satellite, and go and talk to you on the internet, right? I won't have that later on. So I have over 1,000 shows. They're all valuable. They're all relative. They're all shamanic ceremonies. So within them, there is this anti-predictive programming, right? The hidden hand that owns everything. It through the banking cartels, through the military-industrial education, media, um, industrial complex, it controls us, right? And the CIA, the SAS, and a whole group of everything, Hollywood, is there to control us. And here's our sister, uh, Dana Ashley. That's Dana Ashley, Ashlie. She's got a great channel. And I'm just going to play a little bit of it for you. Doing a few interviews with some experts to help back up my claims. And this is an interview that I wanted to share with you in full. The changes that we see in the world are all headed in one direction, and that is actually of a technocracy. Now, in this video, we're going to discuss what a technocracy is, how it goes along with the plans of the AI that we're all seeing unfold before us, and we will also show you where they freely admit to these plans in their own works, in the predictive programming, and in lies all around us hidden in plain sight. So we get a little heady here. I'm sure you'll appreciate it, though, because it can help you save time in your deeper research so that you may continue to be wise as serpents and gentle as doves. I love you, family. Thank you for your support, those of you who have taken the time to do so. May peace be with you all, and may the truth set you free. Well, hello, family. Today... Oh, I hate it when that happens. The difficulty of technology. I have a very special guest to help us with some historical insight that will help us understand why the world is in the shape that it's in. Jay Dyer is with us today. Jay is the host of Jay's Analysis podcast in Esoteric Hollywood. He is an academically published author of peer-reviewed works. He has appeared on numerous nationally syndicated radio shows such as Ground Zero and Coast to Coast AM. He's the author of Esoteric Hollywood, Sex, Cults, and Symbols in Film. Jay's specialties include not only theology and geopolitics, but also metaphysics, film analysis, literature, authentic history, and more. Thank you so much, Jay, for taking the time to join us today.
Thank you, Dana. I'm glad to be here. It's a pleasure. I'm always honored when people ask me on their channel. So I look forward to talking about technocracy. It's definitely something that I've put a lot of time into
Oh, fantastic. Well, these subjects are so huge, and the truth
Right.
of our history has been so altered and hidden from us. And very few people have the bandwidth, honestly, to do such deep study to get to the bottom of things, which is what it really takes to comprehend how deep these agendas of control really go, which is why people like you, who have already spent so many years reading their own works and staying afloat of what they're doing, so very valuable. Very few of us are able to do that. We're dealing with what the beast is keeping us all busy, keeping our heads afloat. So thanks for all your work and the good that you do for us all. But regarding the importance of the elites and their own works. In my own journey, it was by reading Zbigniew Brzezinski's work, Between Two Ages, America's Role in the Technocratic Era, that it became apparent to me that
read that book,
certain
guys.
elites are almost shameless in admitting their plans for controlling the planet. And on one hand, for that, I am very grateful. But it was his work in the 70s. It was already explaining in such great detail how this control through technocracy will turn out. And he was talking about the internet, about how people will voluntarily give their most private information, which is evident in the likes of Facebook. Here's my creme brulee I had for dinner, and much more. So just to back it up, most aren't even familiar with the word technocracy. So while we see the effects of it, we don't know how it came about. So if you wouldn't mind, please explain to us the definition of technocracy and a little bit about its beginnings and how it got a reboot with Mr. Zbig.
Yeah, this was actually, it's an idea that goes back to the ancient Greeks. The idea of both cybernetics and technocracy arise from Plato. And this is mentioned in his writings. He conceives of the idea of techne, or the idea of control through technology. Now, he doesn't believe in computers per se, but he believes in the idea of mechanization. So this has been in ancient texts for a long time, but we have to come up to the period of the Enlightenment and the French Revolution, and you had writers like Henri Saint-Simon, who was a guy who influenced Auguste Comte, and they actually invented sociology. So sociology actually comes out of a bunch of guys who also believe in the idea of technocracy, that you can basically create a completely controlled managerial society. So bound up with the idea of technocracy is the idea of controlling everyone through mechanization in some way, or coming up with a perfectly mathematical formula for how to run government and everyone else's lives in a very intrusive sense. So in the 30s, a guy picked up this idea, who was an engineer named Howard Scott, and he kind of started what would become the modern technocracy movement. And then it became more popular once again, I think, particularly through the science fiction writings of people like H.G. Wells, certain thinkers like Bertrand Russell, who's a very important globalist strategist from about 100 years ago, a famous logician. Then when we come to the more modern period, we have, like you said, Brzezinski. Brzezinski was spotted by David Rockefeller as a potential technocrat, a potential person to be of influence, and he went to McGill University, which is interesting because McGill is one of the central universities for MKUltra.
Even in the Cold War years of the late 50s and early 60s, most doctors and academics would have been embarrassed to have found that an organization of spies was openly paying for their research. So the CIA set up a number of fronts, respectable foundations like the Human Ecology Fund. Sounds innocent enough, but it was run by the CIA's brainwashing experts. Here at McGill University in Montreal, the fund found 3 projects worth financing. The largest MKUltra research project, this one directly related to brainwashing, was carried out at the university's psychiatric hospital, the Allen Memorial Institute. Located atop Mount Royal in a mansion with the eerie name of Ravenscrag, the Allen Memorial was once the most prestigious mental hospital in Canada. The unorthodox treatments of its director caught the attention of the CIA in the mid-50s. Dr. Ewan Cameron, the first director of the Allen Memorial, ran the institute with an iron hand for 20 years. Much of Cameron's research went on in the stables next to the main hospital building. Documents recently released by the CIA reveal what research Cameron proposed. To make patients receptive to repetitive messages, Cameron suggested using chemical agents to break down ongoing patterns of behavior. Chemical agents like LSD. With some patients, Dr. Cameron tried a drastic treatment called depatterning. Massive doses of electroshock, 20 times more intense than the standard shock treatments used today, were administered to patients who were kept sleeping for days. Dr. Cameron thought he could wipe out patients' sick behavior and leave the healthy personality intact. But first patients were to be so depatterned that some even forgot their toilet training.
Reducing the patient to a sort of animal, vegetable state, from which it's hoped that they would recover in a more healthy state of mind. It didn't work.
To put patients to sleep for up to a month at a time, Dr. Cameron used a combination of depatterning and large doses of drugs. Individual taped messages were repeated to sleeping patients 15 hours a day in an effort to brainwash them back to health.
They kept you asleep for 23 days, and while I was asleep, they were shocking the heck out of me with electric shocks and playing tapes just over and over. I don't know what was on the tapes yet, but we're going to find out what was on the tapes through hypnosis.
The CIA was interested in Dr. Cameron's work on psychic driving because it could give them an idea of where the personality could break or be stressed.
Those of us who were involved with trying to find out something about brainwashing, yes, this is the reason that we were interested in Dr. Cameron's work.
Now, that's one of the doctors who did the experiments.
From all across Canada. Dr. Ewan Cameron, it was said, would give them the best psychiatric care money could buy. But some of the
Just like we
had
have
no
the best
idea that a lot of
legislators
their
money can
treatment,
buy.
the LSD, the massive doses of electric shock, the sleep therapy, was highly experimental.
There was no informed consent.
We right now are experiencing being lab rats.
I dream about it.
This novel,
all my waking hours, I think about it.
CV-19.
It's eating me up. It really is.
So I don't know if there's a necessarily direct connect between Zbigniew Brzezinski and MK Ultra, but certainly he was aware of it, and he attended one of the central schools that was involved in those programs for government mind control, essentially, if you're not familiar with it. So anyway, Brzezinski picked up this idea. He was a fan of the technocrats. He felt like a managerial control society was the best way to go. So like, as you mentioned, in Between Two Ages, he mentions the idea of Skype. He mentions the idea of everybody learning through the computer systems, not going to actual universities, but getting your online degrees. He mentions the fact that people will forget the news from 2 weeks ago, and then the media will do the thinking for the public. And he thinks that's all great. He thinks that's a good thing.
Media doing the thinking for us? Are we there yet?
What political party is the current president a part of? None. He's affiliated with Trump Inc. What are the two parts of U.S. Congress?
I don't know.
Can you guys name a U.S. representative in Congress? No. Can you guys name a Lady Gaga song? Poker Face. What are the three Kardashian sisters' names?
Chloe, Kim, and Courtney.
Chloe, Courtney, and Kim.
The most amazing thing that he mentions in that book, in Between Two Ages, is the concept of weather warfare and ELF and BLF magnetic manipulation of the atmosphere and the human biosphere through giant ELF towers. So basically, weather.
And that is the things we discussed in the United Nations in the early 70s.
A few of these phenomenally revealing quotes from Brzezinski's book Between Two Ages to give you an idea of what he admits. And remember, this was already published by 1970. Quote, speaking of a future at most only decades away, an experimenter in intelligence control asserted, I foresee a time when we shall have the means and therefore inevitably the temptation to manipulate the behavior and intellectual functioning of all the people through environmental and biochemical manipulation of the brain. That was on page 15. Page 57, he said, in addition, it may be possible and tempting to exploit for strategic political purposes the fruits of research on the brain and on human behavior. That was said by Gordon MacDonald, a geophysicist specializing in problems of warfare. Brzezinski mentioned that he had written that accurately timed, artificially excited electronic strokes could lead to a pattern of oscillations that produce relatively high power levels over certain regions of the Earth. Anybody heard of 5G or HARP? He goes on to say, In this way, one could develop a system that would seriously impair the brain performance of very large populations in selected regions over an extended period. No matter how disturbing the thought of using the environment to manipulate behavior for national advantages to some, the technology permitting such use will very probably develop within the next few decades.
But that's why David Rockefeller chose Zbigniew Brzezinski to play this central role and placed him in the early 70s, right after this book came out, at the head of a new organization called the Trilateral Commission, which would be a kind of higher.
Anyway, you get the drift, right? We are just lab rats in this thing. And that girl's show is really excellent. And I went and have been watching her past shows, and really people who put out some really good stuff, dark journalism, true stream media, gracefulness, Jimmy Dore. These are all excellent YouTube channels. And I have to realize that all of these folks have their own opinion. Now, they're really putting out really good stuff. And so a lot of people can, oh, they're terrible, I don't want to listen to that. Right? Well, it's like David Icke, People love him or hate him. I just appreciate him. In that he has been doing the heavy lifting since 91, I've been doing it since 68, when I really started to put the dots together. And when I gave that little keynote speech at a conference at the United Nations in 1970, 1980, I guess 86, 88, no, 86, maybe 85, 86. Maybe even 1984. Might have been 84. I think that's why I wanted to do that conference, not H.G. Wells, what's his name's 1984. Orwell, right? And Orwell, Huxley, H.G. Wells, all three of those guys were proponents of this technocracy. H.G. Wells' Time Machine, War of the Worlds, and another really interesting film. Let's see if I can get this.
The superstitious primitives continue to rely upon a quite useless class of technicians called doctors.
Wow, that's amazing. I didn't realize that they were above the CFR. And also, I didn't realize that this had been going on so very long. That's incredible. Because when I think about the control of the elites, I think of them sort of in, a little more modern time when they're like, oh, the population of the world is getting too crazy. We got to do something to scale this back so that they make sure the only people that are around are the ones that are serving them. So grasping it sort of intellectually is one thing. But what is it in your opinion that you would say as a description of what would be the fully realized technocratic plan as it would look in our world today?
Yeah. One of the things that I write about a lot is Hollywood and science fiction and propaganda through fiction. So my book, Esoteric Hollywood, covers that in depth. I think it's about 363 pages, 404 footnotes just on this topic. There's a giant section devoted to H.G. Wells. We can't ever overlook H.G. Wells in a discussion of this nature because he's seminal in influencing Hollywood.
He wrote a book called The New World Order.
From his life on. So we think of the Elements of Moreau, we think of War of the Worlds, we think of The Time Machine, all of these classic H.G. Wells stories. And H.G. Wells consistently put into his novels that he was a technocrat.
So we bred ourselves into castes, some to be our eyes and ears, some to be our muscles and sinews.
You mean you're hunters?
Yes. Bred to be predators, but bred also to be controlled, you see, like Ernest, concentrated on expanding our cerebral abilities.
Control their thoughts.
The Shape of Things to Come.
The Shape
And
of Things to
predicted
Come.
A giant world war. So in other words, he's predicting World War II, and he was only off by 1 year. And he said it would happen in about 10 years, and it would be one of the catalysts to take the world into believing that we need a giant global government, and that's the only way to solve our problems and our disputes. So the giant wars that were concocted, I believe, by powerful banking interests. This is what Dr. Carroll Quigley describes in his magnum opus called Tragedy and Hope. He's also a technocrat.
He worked for the CFR. I studied with him.
So H.G. Wells, in his science fiction, gives us the image of what the technocracy would look like, and he even wrote this into, like I said, a fictional story called The Shape of Things to Come, which became a movie that presents basically a Brave New World 1984 scenario, and that's where we're going to go.
Let us now repeat the catechism. Community. Identity. Stability. Ford bless you. I am Mustafa Mond, and I have been assigned to show you certain selected histobunk highlights from the past.
But everything is perfect now, and everything will always be perfect. So what does it matter what things were like when it wasn't perfect?
Excellent point, but quite misguided. Exposing future stability monitors, such as yourself, to the imperfection of the past is, of course, part of the perfection of the present. Centuries ago, in primitive times, before the dawn of civilization, there were things that would be inconceivable to us today. Such things as poverty. Although there was actually land and food in abundance, some starved, because unlike our perfect society, they were unable or unwilling to balance population to consumption. Sometimes too much of one, or too little of the other. The result? Disease. And rather than eradicate the sources of disease as we have done, the superstitious primitives continue to rely upon a quite useless class of technicians called doctors. Violins, which the ancients actually appear to have enjoyed and reveled in. While we have been perfectly conditioned to want only what we have, and to have only what we want, and are therefore always happy, the uncivilized ancients were prey to destructive emotions, such as ambition, hate, and love, which of course always led to violence and senility, while we remain at the prime metabolic age of 35 to ensure a maximum level of useful consumption until painless death from chemostimulation between the ages of 80 and 90. The people of the past lacked the knowledge of how to stay young, even though they apparently valued youth so highly that they actually indulged in superstitious self-mutilation. As seminarians who will one day take your places in synthoculture stability centers, you must face these histobunk facts, unpleasant and even revolting as they sometimes are. Eating the actual flesh of animals and even filthy things from the ground. And sometimes refusing to engage with more than one individual of the opposite sex. And even collecting into groups called families. A pervasively immoral concept of pre-civilized times. Yes, thoroughly disgusting examples of complete sexual perversion, as you can see.
Did the primitive females actually...
Yes. Primitive females gave viviparous birth to young.
like animals?
Yes, physiologically, exactly like animals. I understand your reactions. Perhaps we should take a brief soma break. That is truly the perfection of our civilization. Everyone is adjusted. Everyone is perfectly happy, perfectly content. So if you think about the dystopian stories of Brave New World or 1984, and if you look on YouTube, you can find this old H.G. Wells movie. And it gives you this idea of a completely controlled society where everything is tracked and traced, everything is stored in AI. Basically, AI will run your life and tell you what you can and can't do, when you've used too much toothpaste, when you've
you've not had your daily big pharma pills for the day, when you haven't watched the appropriate amount of porn that the system wants you to watch. So it's all this stuff that they will have regulated and regimented for your daily life. It'll be completely controlled, completely surveilled. And essentially they will decide when people live or die. So it's also a death state. It's also a euthanasia state where there's determinations made on the basis of sustainable development, as it's so called, on how long you'll live before you're taking up too much energy and carbon.
In fact, if we want to head off the worst uncontrollable damages from climate change, that's what we have to do.
Finland and the Netherlands implemented a carbon tax back in 1990, both putting a price tag on each ton of CO2 poison.
So it's a completely tyrannical system. We've seen actually many think tanks have put out videos, have put out white papers, have put out books, countless aspects of propaganda telling us exactly what the situation will be in a technocracy. But we're looking at something like out of a science fiction story, basically.
Which means Black Mirror is not too far off, is he? And that guy.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I chose to actually do an analysis of every single episode of Black Mirror.
I saw that.
Long, 20-page essay that I did because, like you said, I saw that they're really conditioning us through something like Black Mirror, especially.
Yeah, at first I wanted to think of his work as a warning, but as it kept going on, it felt more like.
Anyway, so you can go on YouTube and watch that and all her other really good videos. And again, I come and say, watch these people, but you don't have to believe them. Just like I say, hey, don't believe me. Don't believe a word I say, right? But let the story I tell you kind of percolate the little gray cells to think for yourself. And that enables you to co-create with love when you think for yourself. Not be prejudicial, because prejudice means you're believing somebody's scam, religious, economic, whatever belief structure. You are being scammed, right? And these folks who have unlimited power and money, are basically, or have been, controlling the world, since the Greeks and before then, because as they were alluding, we're never really told what our past was. The Catholic, Christian, Judeo-Christian, and that includes, in the Judeo-Christian, that includes Islam. Islam's part of that because, they are as Christian, Muslims are Christians on steroids. I'd like to see Hey, Lena. Yo. So I've been showing videos of, other people's channels because they do a better, they really are skilled in this thing. And this is a young lady, Dana Ashley, right? D-A-N-A Ashley, A-S-H-L-I-E. Go look at her channel, right? And how am I? I'm actually doing pretty good. And, today's show is, the one good thing about being sick is it makes you appreciate being well. So hear this, non-drumming, you're going to die, a novel coronavirus 19 is going to get you. And what's really interesting, that RNA strand has a it was patented by a company in England that's owned by the Queen. And in England, anything the royal family owns, A, can't be taxed, B, can't be attacked or taken down, right? And so they have this virus, and they've had it since 2018. That's when they put the patent in. And they did it through a number of cutouts, so you really can't see what hand is doing what, right? The hidden hand. And again, do you want to know when exactly it's spread? I got the data. Yes, lay it on us, D. Miss Lana, lay it on us, And gang, I don't know how to do this, but if any of you, well, in the chat, if you have any kind of threads or channels or, links that you want to put in for us to see, I would appreciate it. Yep. Hold on. Okay. Love to hold on with you. So I'm doing good. Like I'm out in the deep green. I'm, there's, I'm already, I am socially, what do you call it? When you put yourself aside, the quarantine. I'm quarantining myself from the outside world, I mean, it's nearby. I go visit it, but more people are dying of the flu. Average, 20 to 60,000 people every friggin' year die of the everyday flu, right? And this corona thing has certain characteristics. One is what I see this flu is going to be is another version of AIDS, but AIDS you can only get through bodily fluids, so either sex or sharing needles. So that was a very limited population, right? And so this one, if you put your hand on a railing, you can get it, right? So better wash your hands and don't pick your nose. Don't rub your eyes. I mean, those masks that people wear, the only really good thing that mask can protect you from is you touching your face. Because unless someone sneezes right in your face, it's not airborne. What the airborne part of it is that the particulate, the spray goes down onto surfaces and lasts there anywhere from, 2 days to, a month. And you going up stairs and you hit that railing, then you pick your nose. Well, the only good thing the mask and the goggles do keeps you from picking your nose. Oh, there you go. Okay. Asia, China, right? Hong Kong, right? America, yep. 10, South Korea, yep. And again, what that shows is that this virus spreads very easily, very rapidly, right? Now, it's not as deadly as a regular police. And see, the other really bad thing is we don't have the real data. And what's really annoying, or the most shocking, or the most dangerous thing that the United States did, it basically, in the last 3 years, cut the budget of the NSI and the CDC, and and different entities like the Energy Department and the State Department. They had offices that were looking at diseases, right, and keeping the data on it. Well, they closed all that. So our government has very little data on all this. We have to depend on people like China to tell us what's going on. And when Carrot Pinhead said, "Oh, we got the best people. We're number one." Well, they fired them all, right? So that means they have to reconstitute these teams. They haven't started to do that. And the one thing that by bringing all these people together under Uncle Mike Pence is that they are now going to control the information. There was a number of doctors in the CDC and other elements that were giving, interviews on the cable networks, right? And that's everyone's competing for that. And so, the day or so before, Carrot Pinhead gave that little, news briefing. There was some pretty good information. One of the CDC doctors said, listen, the difference between the flu and a cold is that, and this other thing is that most of those other things are upper respiratory, meaning you sneeze, you cough, your nose runs, and you kind of get it in your throat and here. And the novel virus seems to be in your lower lungs. And so that's why people don't even know they have it, because it's down there. They aren't coughing, they aren't sneezing, they aren't doing any of that until it really erupts up, right? And that's why it can be in you for anywhere from 2 days to a month before you even start erupting, and then it can be in you and you don't have any signs whatsoever. So the CDC, this character who, this woman who got sick in California, she, got sick and it wouldn't get better, so she went to the hospital, and they thought it was just pneumonia, so they treated her for that, and it didn't do any good. And so they were confused, and so they went to the CDC and said, "Hey, we have this one person we're confused about." And the CDC for 4 days wouldn't. Oh, she wasn't in China. She didn't come in contact with him. Well, she doesn't have that. Well, for 4 days she's in the hospital, and nurses and orderlies and doctors and hundreds of people came in contact with her without her being quarantined or isolated or protected, or they being protected. And so a lot of people got exposed, right? And you'd think that the CDC and this new, Mike Pence being the czar of this, that they would go right to that hospital and, really, okay, so here's the first American who's got it, who hasn't, it's called public exposure, meaning they didn't get it from, somebody who came from China. Now, it was brought by somebody who met somebody who met somebody who met somebody who met somebody. And, how you stop epidemics is when you bring these people like me who would go in and forensically figure out, okay, so who did you talk to? Where'd you go? What restaurant? This, and just go like this. And that's what the Chinese have done in a very good way. Well, they're an authoritarian government. They can do that, right? So Estonia, Georgia, pretty much everybody. This is the data for now. You need not touching people, have alcohol gel. Yep, all that. A mask. And like I said, the best thing a mask does is keep you from touching your face. 60 in the States, yeah. And if 60 people are documented to have it, that means, the other thing about this disease, like the flu, one person who has the flu contaminates two people. People with this thing is one person contaminates somewhere between 5 and 20 people, right? So, and then those people, infect from 5 to 20 people. So the thing about this thing is that it really spreads rapidly and easily, right? That's the number one thing. And that it stays hidden for a good amount of time. So you can't see really what it's doing until the harm is already done, right? And the other interesting thing, and that's why it seems like an engineered thing, is because it does so many perfect things perfectly, right? No virus does this. And that's why it's called a novel virus. It's doing things that most viruses don't do, right? So it infects you, you pass it on. You may or may not get sick and continue to pass it on to more and more people. So about 80% of the people so far in China have gotten better, right? And they've been released. But now a number of them are popping up, getting it again. And it's like, that's the thing about this. This is going to be like herpes or AIDS or that kind of thing, where it infects you, you're going to be infected for life. And so you're going to need to take a big pharma drug for the rest of your life. So, it will kill somewhere between 2 and 80% of the human race in the next 3 years. And the rest will be controlled by the need to take a retrovirus / drug from big pharma, big revenue stream, right, and a control stream too, right. And then they will implement lots of social engineering things, like good old H.G. Wells wanted. So we're right in the mix of it. It's not like coming. It's not like, oops, it's almost here. No, we're right in the mix of it, right? So, as my title says, the one good thing about getting sick, it makes you appreciate being better, right? And so you become more self-aware, self-conscious, not in a egocentric kind of way, but in a more all our relations kind of way. And so that's what we're going to have, this very stark choice. And this young lady, Ashley, she is a very, very strong Christian, but she's a thinking Christian, right? It's an almost oxymoron, right? But I'm a thinking Christian, I haven't stopped being, a big fan of Jesus Christ. I'm just not a big fan of religions, right? I'm not and I'm still a reader of the Bible, but I don't read it as a catechism, and that's in that little clip from that movie, and we'll read the catechism, right? So this and the major thing is love's co-creation. That is what this plague is going to push, the folk to. And when you embrace love's co-creation, you realize that nothing is impossible, right? It enables you to suspend your disbelief, and that's what religion is. It's a disbelief in everything other than your catechism. I don't believe in anything but in the box. What's in the box, I believe. That's going to save me. A catechism's going to save me. I'll kill the infidel. I'll set that baby on fire if the catechism tell me to do that. So 60 in the States and Italy, there are a bit more dangerous zone because of way great always kissing and cheeks, hugs, touches. Yep. And of course, it's going to cause the frightened masses to lose their empathy. So they're not going to kiss. They're not going to hug. And, you can kiss and hug and be intimate with someone and have them be miles away. That's, that's what I do to all of you guys. Before I do these shows, I kind of go into shamanic state and prayer and meditate. And when I go into the show, I use this, hey, good morning, good evening, wherever you are, these are like constructed shamanic tones, right? Don't believe a word I say, these are all tones. And so I connect to you, the cadre, the chorus. Those of you who, are brave and go on the live chat, like Princess Lana here, you are the chorus. You sing, right? Now, the cadre is the almost 400 assembled, and our, all our relations is the 50,000 or so who are watching, right? So that's where we are, and so I hug and kiss and caress you, Alana, and all those in the chorus who are brave. You're brave souls. It's going to happen. Border being closed. Yep, all the above, right? But we have this internet thing, and it keeps us connected, and when they take that down, we have, this thing called our heart song, right? And I am constantly in prayer and meditation, sending my heart song out to all my relations, not just the chorus, not just the cadre, but all our relations, right? Because that is the blessing of this plague. Now, the dingbats who, believe in an apocalyptic, coming of the four horsemen, someone asked Jesus, so when's end of times, Jesus, when are you coming back? And he says, I don't know. It's above my pay grade. But, and this is what he said, morons, I am not going anywhere. When more than two come together in my name, there I am, right? So Jesus never left. He's not coming back. He's still here, right? And as long as he's here, we are going to have love and compassion and empathy, because those were the essences of Jesus, and also Muhammad, and also Buddha, and also Vishnu, because they're all cut from the same cloth of the lucky bastard. They're all, the masters who come to lead by example, right? Now, they didn't come to make a religion that was tax free, and they were going to invest in their new, gambling casino in Las Vegas. It's going to happen. So don't you think maybe one of us that may have the antibody for the cure? Yes, we do have that antibody. It's called love, right? And love's co-creation. That's the antibody to every disease, right? And if you're scared of dying, then you're not ready to live. That's the other little thing I'm basically saying in the title. The best thing about being sick is you appreciate being well, right? I believe I went to France, right? What was this? I believe that he went and fled to France. Yeah, the married virgins. Him and his sweetie went to France and drinking wine and hanging out on the Mediterranean, having a good life. And he started that whole what was looking for the chalice, the Grail. The Grail was Mary Magdalene's vagina. That was the Grail. That was the cup. And she spread the seed, right? And the children went forth. And then all the moron kings who knew this. Oh, well, I'm part of that crew, so I should be king. No, I don't think so. I mean, anyone who speaks the ego of that power definitely doesn't come from that bloodline. Like all of the kings and queens of Europe, they are sycophants, sociopath, morons. And they don't even come from where they say they come from. The royal family of England, they're basically Nazis. They're like Habsburgian clan, which basically came from the Khazarian mob. You should go check those guys out, right? They make ISIS look like Mickey Mouse. No, not scared of dying, right? And so that means every minute of the day you live, you don't masturbate just to get off. If you do it as a psychosexual ceremony with love's co-creation, you're using that energy in a positive way. The other way, you're just that you're spilling the seed. So that's what it's about. And that's porn is there to obliterate the seed, to everything that's corporate, is fascist, right? Is comes from this small group of people, Cecil Rhodes and all of those guys, the folks who obliterated Africa and stole everything they could from those folks, Yeah. And the other side of all of this, people always want to, that's good, that's bad, that's good, that's bad, that's good, no. Everything was created by love's co-creation. All of the things that are seemingly bad, all of this mishigash of materialism and war and avarice and greed, all of those things were put here on purpose. It's just like, me, living 10 years in the hedonist world, having a great time, I have to say, I had a great time, but I died in a plate of spaghetti. And that would have been it for most people. They'd be dead in a plate of spaghetti. But, I popped up in the astral plane and met my you know, spiritual guides and mentors, and they said, "Well, hey, great, good to see you. Glad you're here." But I said, "Oh, good. I can just go to sleep now." And no, 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 you got to go back. What? I said, "Yeah, you got to go back." What? Yeah, you haven't finished. What? And they said, "Well, okay, you've got a free will. You want to stay here and go hang out in Shambhala for a little while and talk to your buds. Well, that's fine, but you're gonna have to go in the blender of reincarnation, and then karma will throw you, an 8 ball and see where that, how you do with that one. But if you go back and continue to do what that you agreed to do before you were born, um, and that's why you keep coming. That's why you died and gone back there, because you got a thing to do. So that's why I started Dreamy Dreamland with Sensei Al Bob. And that's why you, the cadre and the chorus, right, and all our relations are here. We are here to not give up, not give in, and not be mean, you know. And but all the folks who are mean and giving up and all the rest, they're just going to go into the wearing blender of karma and come back out to work it out. And that's, kind of every religion, even Jesus believed in reincarnation. And so this thing about transhumanism is like a roadblock to that, because it'll stick humans, go watch that movie, Zardos, by Sean Connery, done in the 70s or early 80s. And, that picks it, that really says, hey, don't do this, right? It shows exactly what would happen to the human race, right? And, those kids who were on, Ashley's channel, a guy who wrote a book about Hollywood. And, Hollywood, why the term Hollywood, what is Hollywood? Is there a place in California that the Spanish said, oh, that's Hollywood? Or the Indians said, oh, that's Hollywood? No. What is Hollywood? It's a magical land, right? And what is magic? You have your magic wand. And what is the magic wand made from? All magic wands are made from the holly wood. The wood of the holly, it's not quite a tree, it's more like a big bush, right? Very thorny. And it's, chemical extracts and its herbal essences are very powerful and have been part of, alchemy forever. So it's a very transformative plant. And so that's Hollywood, right? A magic wand of propaganda, right? Yo, dear Jane, welcome, friend. So that's where we're at. We're at this place where it's right in our. It's more than right now. It's been in our face since, ever since Mesopotamia. It's been in our face, right? But that's what the Roman Empire of bread and circus was. Bread was a freaking poison. It was an addictive substance. Bread is more addictive than crack, right? And man, a good in New York City, the mob runs everything addictive. They have this one bakery. If you ever go to fancy restaurants in New York City, they don't bring you sliced Wonder Bread. No, they give you these rolls where the outside is crispy. It cracks. It's like, just unbelievable. And then the inside is this warm, unbelievable, yummy, doughy inside. So it's crisp and warm and buttery on the inside. It's better than fried chicken, and everyone knows how they love fried chicken. So the mob, which is the extension of the Holy Roman Empire, they in New York they own everything that's addictive. So the Roman Empire gave us bread and circus, and today in the corporate world, in the corporate fascist world, we have fast food and flat screen TV, right? That brings us all that, and the flat screen TV is even better than going to the circus, because circus, you're up on a thing and you're right, but on the flat screen, you're in your home and you're watching it, and there's a zillion little pixels on that screen, flashing on and off, putting subversive and subliminal information into your subcortex, right? Obey, obey, consume, consume. Just like in the book They Live, right? Or They Are, or They, whatever. And it is all, it's productive. Every movie you see that gives you the 411. I remember seeing a Jim Rockford, like in the 70s, where he uncovers a corporate entity that is hiding to be, it's pretending to be a government thing, and it is collecting all the data from the credit cards and the TV and the everything and making a database of all the American citizens, right? And that was done in like whenever Jim Rockford was on, right? They were saying, hey kids, this is what's going on. Get used to it. And that's what everything you see on TV, it's like, get used to it. So what are we seeing, nonstop is this, one day, no one talks about it, when it was like important to talk about it, like back in October, no one even knew about it. I kind of see it bubbling up. I saw little references to it. And, through my, sources and again, all my sources are prejudicial, right? And so I have to look at everything and suss it out, right? And so I didn't really say much about it. And I saw no government say anything about it. And then all of a sudden it hit like a ton of bricks, right? And it's affecting, we live in a capitalist society, so it's affecting the stock market. And all that's doing is every time you see a crash of this order, and it's going down. I mean, it's already, it's heading towards, 10,000, It will be there before, if, this is my prediction, if the stock market goes below 17,000 by the end of March, it's going to go down to hit 8 to 2,000 by July. And if it goes that far, everyone's going to be gnawing on each other's legs, right? I mean, every economic system's just going to crater, right? And so, just like in 08, we have to do this and, give up more. You all have to take them. You're all going to have to take the mark. You're all going to have to get a little, chip put in your right hand, right about there, right here, because right here, this part of your hand, right, that spot right there is the most connected nervous system. Why we have, craniosacral. There are 9 pulses in our body, right, and they all, that is the nexus of that. So that's where they're going to put the chip, because not only will it be a place that's identifiable, there'll always be like this little red scar there. I've been chipped. I feel like, when they dart some, animal out there in the woods and they stick a chip in them, so the GPS. Well, I've had a number of those in me. I was. I can tell you a little story because I'm a griot. When was it? 2000. Yes, it was like between 99 and 2002, somewhere in there, right? And I just left Asheville, North Carolina, and I had been tasked because Asheville, there is a park in Asheville along the French Broad River that's on in the southwestern, where the old speedway was, right? And there's a park there right on the river, kind of across from where the railroad yard is, and built more houses down there. And that's where all of these, ritual murders are done, right? And the police department of Asheville basically ignored that, right? It was too weird for them. And then, in the mid 90s, they went from old boy crackerhead police force, Chamber of Commerce and the city fathers hired, a professional policeman. He had been, police chief of either Baltimore or or Philly, or big high guy in the New York City Police Department. And he wrote a lot of books about community, and racial harmony and blah blah blah. He was a really smart guy. He was a really nice guy, and so he showed up. And as soon as he showed up, the police department, everybody below him were still crackerheads, right? And I knew a number of the police because that's one of my things. Whenever I go, and whenever I'm going to live in a town, I go and befriend the police, right? And so I go and hang with him, and he was there about 6 months, and they had, and I kept telling the police guys that I knew, you guys have a real serious gang problem. We talk gangs. We don't have gangs in Asheville. That's New York. That's L.A. And I said no, and I showed them because the gangs were tagging different neighborhoods, right? And they were selling crack, and they were selling serious drugs, meth, and you name it. Not just moonshine and pot, which was the homeboys were doing that. The guys from Madison County, bloody Madison, and anyway, so it was that was another reason I stayed. First of all, Asheville was so much fun when I was there because there was no one there except really interesting people. I was like and why I went to UNCA was there was Robert Moog, Moog synthesizer. He was there, right? And there was another guy, Elliot, who was really interesting sociologist, and the blacks were there. They were also social scientists, and there was a cadre of really interesting scholars who made their careers and still wanted to teach and still wanted to have the resources of university. So they, got themselves a gig at UNCA, and UNCA was happy to have these really famous, well-published, guys who were from Harvard and Stanford and amazing things in their careers. And so, sure, yeah, I mean, the guy who ran the art department was a pretty famous 1970s, artist of the time. He was right up there with Rauschenberg and Richard Serra and guys like that. He was that ilk. So he ran their theater, their art department. Their theater department was a lady from, Broadway, and she was really cool. So they had really interesting departments. And the guy who ran the physics and science department was a straight up CIA DARPA scientist, right? He knew Carl. He came from Cornell, knew Carl Sagan. He was, and he went there to find really, and that's what this school did. Having those teachers, the student body was really interesting. Guys like me and other people who were a lot younger. And that's where we started the first really inquiring society. And there was the music department was really amazing. Art department, every department was amazing, right? Wasn't just chucklehead kids, right? And so I was using that place as my base of operation of doing these demographic studies. Because again, Asheville was just like Petri dish, right? It had lots of different people because it had been the Paris of the South. So it had a lot of these interesting cultural influences that were nothing like the Ozarks or the Appalachians, even though they're right in the middle of it, or the Blue Ridge Mountains. And it was only about, as the crow flies, about 60 miles to Oak Ridge, Tennessee. And Asheville, as many of the, like Irwin, Tennessee, and Roanoke, Virginia, they all have really super duper deep DARPA, Manhattan Project roots. Hey, Alan, good to see you, buddy. Jay, Elena, and the gang. Hi from Northern Ireland. Just came on board. Mentioned Moog. Yeah, Bob. Yep. And Bob was so much fun. So all these guys were really famous, well publicized, did amazing things. Was a guy in the psychological department who was part of, he was from McGill, and he was totally MK Ultra guy, and I kind of knew him through my experience in the late '60s at Cornell, where they had the SEAL Corporation. Right, there's the SEAL team and the Navy guys. Well, there was from out of Stanford. There was a group that came from JPL, the Satanists, who were developing super soldiers, and they were studying everything paranormal at Duke University, and that's where this guy was. So he was totally MK Ultra, butterfly effect, super soldier guy, and he was at UNCA, and so they were bringing in the best of the best students, so they could prepare them to go be the next generation of the pseudo technocrats to run this brave new world. And what better place for me to be than right in the middle of this? And the people who were at the highest level of all of that kind of knew me, because I kind of came from Cornell where this was, and I've been at other institutions. I had just started being my 88 is when I put on the robes of the itinerant scholar, and studying all this stuff in a way that no one else studies this stuff, and that's was the beauty of Asheville. So anyway, so I'm looking at Asheville as this petri dish, and it has the worst drinking water because everyone in Asheville is drinking their sewage, right? Because when they built a septic water and sewage system right at the Depression, the contractor who did it didn't get paid. He burnt the documentation of where the sewer and water lines are. City of Asheville has no idea, so they're basically drinking sewage. And unless they dig up all of Asheville and replace everything, it's pretty. If you have a compromised immune system, you don't want to live there. And that's why. So I got put on the water board and the health department board because they had all of this data and no database. And again, how I really got into Asheville is that I first did a similar kind of database for the Biltmore House when they were going to revamp it from a trailer trash community into the Biltmore House as a tourist site, right? And then we did the same thing for the city of Asheville. So, they had all this data and history of what Asheville was, and they wanted to rebrand Asheville as a tourist town, turn it into the hipster jungle it is today. And I was right there at the basement level of redoing that, right? And why it is such an art place is that I helped start a thing called the Artist Trust, right? That for a very short period of time, because the rich people were coming in from New York and buying up everything cheap and going to turn it into and taking the culture that was amazing there. The black culture was amazing, right? It was part of it was there was Harlem and Asheville and a few other gems of New Orleans, of the Chitlin circuit. Anyway, so I'm watching all this stuff and writing about it and using Asheville as the petri dish of American culture. And, and I was writing not things for Look magazine, but for like Brookings and Ford Foundation and all those kind of the Tetra Institute. And and I was happy to do it because they gave me access to resources that you normally don't get. And they were paying me nicely. Right? And I didn't really have to, I could do it from home. I could go to the library. I had a little, carrel I could study in. I had total access to anything I wanted, right? So And the school was very cool. There were all these great people. I was having loads of fun. A lot of great students, youngsters, loads of fun. I had my own little chorus of sisters who took care of me. And I would have these Friday potluck dinners where everybody who was anybody that was in the groove would go there. And then I got this gigantic buddy of mine, and we realized that there was all this real estate downtown that you could rent for nothing. And what was his name? Oh, he started a thing called "What Do You Want?" Right? And he was very Germanic. His parents were German, and he had made a pretty good chunk of change out of doing international bike racing. And so he did that for about 5 or 6 years. Went around the world, had a lot of fun, met a lot of girls, and he did a race in Florida, and he met this girl who really had a sharp mind for business and trends, right? And she was into fashion. But she was a trailer trash girl, but she was smart, right? And so he stayed there a year or so with her and realized that Florida wasn't it. He said, let's go back to my town, Asheville, right? I know everybody. And he was the dude, right? And so they went there and they took the little cash he had a nice chunk of change, from what everyone else in Asheville had. And his parents were pretty well to do, And so, he stayed with them in their nice big house, and he went downtown. And that's when I met him. He rented a storefront that was right on, and it was like Asheville's built in a city that's very hilly, and they kind of leveled a chunk of it off in the 20s. But his where he rented this building was really cool because Lexington was one of the major streets, and Broadway, right, the two major streets in Asheville, and he had basically storefronts on both, right, and then another floor. So he had about 7,000 square feet, give or take. And so on the Lexington, Broadway is pretty because it was one of the major exits off of the interstate. So there was a lot of traffic, but Lexington was dead. So, people could go to sleep on Lexington and no one would run them over. So there was an easiness about it. So we opened up this store called What Do You Want? And we would drive around in my big truck and go through the rich people's garbage. He would bring it back, he's an artist, and he would turn the stuff people throw out into art pieces and stuff. People would throw out, boxes of CDs, and he would sell them. It was relatively close to the college, meaning if you wanted to, you could walk relatively easily from the campus to this place called What Do You Want? And it was the only thing on Lexington. Everything was the only other thing that was on Lexington were prostitutes, right? That was it, right? And he called it What Do You Want? Because he loved answering his phone. What do you want? Right? And so the first year he opens his store. So it's not only him being the artist, it's his girlfriend being, her name was Janet. And so she turned, he turned stuff into art and she turned stuff into clothes and all the other stuff, the tchotchke stuff they sold. And then they got a T-shirt, silk screen thing, and they had one of their friends down in the basement knocking silk screens out and pipes and like a head shop. It was a lot. It was everything. She went up there, figured out what the kids wanted, and it was like a one-stop place for cool stuff for college kids of 1991. And the first year they opened up there, they rented that place for $120 a month, right? And the landlord for the first year paid their utilities, gas and electric, right? And so I was living in a chicken coop in northern Asheville, which was like an artist commune. It had been a chicken farm in the 50s, and then the guy moved to Florida, and his son took it over, and he didn't want anything to do with chickens. He was an artist, so he started making art, and then his friends came from New York, and so when I showed up in Asheville, this artist commune in northern North Asheville. There's a lake there, and that road would go up to Blue Ridge Parkway. And so anyway, I found my way there, and it was great. It was a real commune. We all ate dinner together. We had our own little individual chicken coops that we lived in, and I got there in early spring, and it was great, right? And but once winter started to roll around, Stefan, that was his name, Stefan and Janet, and so they'd rented that place, and they were like fooling around getting it together, and I was like one of the first people walking. Oh, what are you guys doing here? And they were doing this and that. And I said, oh, great. And they didn't have a car, but I had this gigantic truck, like a contractor's with all the boxes and stuff. So I had a lot of how to fix things. So, they moved in, and the guy said, oh, I wanted to keep, the landlord said, I want to keep the utilities in my name. So if I want to throw you out, it'll be easy. I'll just turn off the utilities, and you can't turn them on, and you'll have to move. So they said, fine, you're going to pay the utilities. Great. Not a problem. So, but nothing worked. So and you'd hit a light switch, and the light would explode out of the ceiling. So, I helped them fix everything and make it so no one died. And I had a lot of space. So winter was showing up, and they had heat. And so I basically said, hey, can I? Oh, yeah, come on. Yeah, move in. You're our buddy. So I moved in, and anyway, they started their emporium, and it was amazing because the first year they made $180,000 because they had a clientele that couldn't go, and there was nothing else in this town. It was deader than a doornail, and there was Warren Wilson, and there was UNCA, and I think there was another nearby college that these kids had nothing to do, so they came to this place, and they made a profit of $181,000 the first year, and really it was only half a year, right? And so they got the Chamber of Commerce award, and they became business people. And really, 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 why Asheville is the way it is because of Stefan and Janet, because they started because the real estate downtown was cheaper than dirt, right? So and there was a guy who was a homeless guy, and he was a great artist, and he lived on the French Broad, and the utility company would just throw their crap on this piece of property they had along the French Broad, concrete and transformers and just crap, and it would flood, and so it would take the stuff away, right, and disperse it into the further counties down the French Broad, and really be poisonous, crappy stuff. And this guy turned it into a little bit of heaven. His name was Otter. So there were all these different little groups of people that were really amazingly interesting. So I got there in 91, and so from 91 until 99, I was there. Around 96, that's when, and the reason why Asheville was stuck in amber was they had overspent money in the 20s, turning Asheville into an amazing thing. It was the Paris itself. All of the intelligentsia of Europe and America would go to Asheville and hang out there in the spring and summer because of the heat and whatever. But when the Depression came, they had just spent millions, hundreds of millions, and then they couldn't pay anybody off. And so the city of Asheville did not finish paying off their Depression debt until 1996. So nobody would lend them any money, so they were stuck in amber. And that's why it was so great, because it was a beautiful city, stuck in amber at the height, and then everybody left. And it was just really strange, cool people who were left, right? So anyway, by the time 92, we had a big snowstorm, 92. And that's when it was obvious what happened, because we got like 90 inches of snow in an evening. And then it got really cold, and that 90 inches of snow turned into one big ice cube. So nobody could get around. The fire trucks, cop cars, nobody. So everyone was stuck inside. So I saw what, sheltering at home was like. And luckily they had gas, and a good chunk of Asheville had the utilities kind of underground. And the main lines kind of came in. But the bad thing about utilities in Asheville, most cities are wired like tennis rackets. So if one feed goes out, it can be fed, but not Asheville. Came in and went out. And so about 3/4 of Asheville lost its power for 2 weeks, maybe longer. And it's 90 degrees below zero, and you got 10 feet of snow up to the roof. If people were dying, and they couldn't even find them, so they didn't even say they were dying. It was like kind of like this virus thing. It was very strange. And I actually lived in a house, an apartment building at the time, that we had gas and the electricity came underground. So we had electricity and gas, and it was warm and it's nice. And I went around and got all my neighbors, because they were freezing to death, said, you can live in our hallways. Because we had these amazingly wide hallways. I had no idea why hallways were as wide. They were like 12 foot wide. And so, we had about 50 people camping out in the hallways, and there were these two old biddies. And they kept calling the cops. And then the cops came and basically saw what I said. And I said, listen, officer, these are all our neighbors. And they're freezing to death in the house. And here they are, we're sharing. I want them to survive. And the cop goes, yeah, you're a good guy. Turn to the old lady. I said, listen, you call again. I am physically going to come here and arrest you and put you in the jail that has no heat and electricity. And, the section for women is in the same section as men. And the guards haven't showed up. So so that's where you're going. If you do not, if you call 911 once again, you're going there. And I'm not kidding around, right? So that was how, the thumbnail of what Asheville was. So the only people who had mobility were the frigging gangs. So they would just, they were so emboldened, that they went and stole skidoos, those things that can get through snow, and went around up into the rich people neck of the woods and robbed it. It was like Clockwork Orange, it really was. It was unbelievable. And the cops couldn't do anything about it. They couldn't take their Ford, LeBarons, because they've already, all the police cars had already slid off into the oblivion. So, and the fire department, and there were parts of the rich parts of Asheville that caught fire and didn't get put out. I mean, no one. This happened. I was there, but the newspaper guys didn't write about TV as they couldn't get out, right? Because when the spring came, a whole little neighborhood was like kind of burnt out, So this was all going on, and that was the impetus, because the chief of police was so incompetent that they replaced him with this guy who was very competent. But just because he was competent didn't mean the rest of the police department was competent. So he had nobody to talk to, and I walked in there one day. I said, hey, I read up on you, and I gave him the 4-1 of exactly what it was. He goes, wow, I need you. You're going to, I'm going to be, Batman. You're going to be Robin. I said, well, I don't know, but I'll be your buddy. And his office was great because it was at the top of this building. It looked like a castle. And the back looked out on the last black street. And you looked out that window and they were selling everything you could imagine, right? Drugs, guns, you name it. I said, look out here, look at this. He goes, I don't look out that window. I said, what do you mean? I said, if I looked, I couldn't do my job. Because he's, look out the window and you see the sergeant taking money from the drug dealer. It's like right there. They, didn't even blink about it. So, and there was, oh, it's a safe city. Well, 30,000 people were dying a year in Asheville by just drinking the water. The air, 2 interstates went through downtown Asheville, I-40 and I-26. So 1 million cars, trucks, drove through downtown Asheville, and it was a bowl. There was no wind blowing through it. So it had worse air pollution than, than LA, right? So the amazing thing is the health department kept no records on people dying of, immune disorders, and it had a gigantic gay and intravenous drug user population, and they had no statistics on that. And they had two big jails there, and they had no statistics on who was in the jail. And the air, NOAA was there at one of their main offices there, and they weren't saying, and was the one that dealt with air quality, and it didn't measure the air quality. And I mean, it's unbelievable. It was the poster child of government, incompetence, right? And what we're going to see, the amazing thing, what we're going to see in the next 3 months is a level of our government and our institutions incompetence, right? And the churches and the banks and the stock market and the corporate, manufacturing and the governments across the board in America are going to collapse. But you're not going to be able to deal with these issues, right? Environmental issues. And it's not carbon. No, it's the fact of what we are, you want to know what the most toxic thing on our planet isn't frigging carbon. If you're scared of carbon, go plant more trees. The thing that is the most toxic thing is the electromagnetic soup that we live in. Just forget, cell technology. Just take that off the board. All our houses have these little thing called outlets and light switches and all around. So we are in a spider web of wires, and current is in there pulsing at 60 cycles. Right? I mean, radio waves, TV waves, microwaves. The router in your house is beyond 5G. The most toxic thing you have is your Wi-Fi, right? The thing I'm talking to you on is the most toxic thing in this house, right? Now, the kind of exposure that you have to get from that to be, if you're a child, and to give your kid one of these things when it's like 2 years old just to shut him up, forget about it. You've just, given your child into slavery on every level, Because no matter what kind of, guardianship you may think you're putting on your device for your kid, a kid can find anything. So the kid is watching the most violent, sexually blah, blah, blah things, that the, satanic world can put out. And that poor little child of 2 years old is getting it sucked right into its brain. So that's where we're at, right? So you expect any of these institutions to protect you? Forget about it, right? And all they are doing is separating. Our politics is turning everyone into these rabid tribal camps, instead of us being together. And there isn't anyone out there. I don't see a single person who is trying to bring folks together. The closest person of anyone running for president that I see on trying to do this is Tulsi Gabbard, right? And no one hears about her. You have to go on YouTube and watch her things. And she has to repeat that, they're constantly going, well, you talked to, 3 years ago, you went to Syria and talked to da-da-da-da, and, please, if that's the only thing you're going to say. They didn't, she was on the podium at those debates for about 4, and she would slice everyone up like a Ginsu knife. So they didn't want her there to show the level of incompetence and stupidity of the people running. Look at the morons the Democrats have there. Joe, who is like in the level of senility, that's your grandma. Your grandma is a stable genius compared to Joe. Then you have Pete, Mayor Pete, who's like a Stepford wife. And he has to be because he goes, and that's my husband, so he's a Stepford wife. Amy is like what you hear from her staff, what would she be doing as president? Then you look at war on. That's what, that's her name says it all. War on. That's all she's going to be. War on, right? And Mikey, little Mikey, he's just, who else is there? And there's other people that I can't even remember who they are, and Bernie. Bernie, thing I like about Bernie, they say, well, he's authentic. He sure is. He's like the grumpy grandpa who, constantly talking about his splints and how he has to wear depends. And that's okay. That's me, but I'm not the grumpy, I'm not grumpy about it. I just kind of live with it. And if you really want, I forgot, I think who's the English guy who does the HBO this day, he does it on Sunday. Anyway, he did a thing on Bernie. What he did was he went back and found this website that has all of Bernie's 1970, 1980, when he was mayor of, the city in Vermont. They had, community cable channel, and Bernie had a show. And it was surreal because, he had to say, Bernie with kids. And he'd go to the mall and he'd interview kids. And so, what do you think of the tax brackets for blah, blah, blah? And what do you think? Do any of you, he had this group of kids. He goes, and they're like, the oldest is 5. And he goes, any of you kids do coke? You know what coke is? You know what methamphetamine is? You're doing meth at home? And it's like, and that's Bernie, So you want that guy to be president? And he's such, he calls himself, he's no socialist. Give me a break, What he is like, at best, he is like a cartoon character from Denmark as a political character, right? That's Bernie, right? He's a social democrat, He's a small d Democrat, but he's, he went along, last presidential election. He should have been president, meaning, what's her name? She ran to lose, She did everything she could to lose, right? She called, 20% of the population a basket of deplorables. She went to the, she understood what the Congress, the Electoral Congress was. And she made sure that she lost the 4, 5, 6 most important states that makes the president, right? And that system was done. The founding fathers didn't believe in democracy. They didn't, one man, one vote. Forget it. Because the Constitution, you had to be white male that owned property to be a citizen. Everybody else was a slave. Women were slaves. People of color were slaves. White folk who didn't own anything were slaves, indentured servants. So we have been a slave, a prison planet, a prison country from its inception, right? And all of this is coming up to be like one gigantic pimple to this window. I've been talking about window of opportunity for at least the last 11 months, and people, what's he talking about? Well, this is, the window is starting to be really obvious. This pandemic, this presidential election, the wars that are going on all around us, and the collapse of our economic system. The stock market is falling, free fall. If you took our economy on top of a skyscraper and a bowling ball and threw them both off at the same time, it doesn't matter how heavy something is. Gravity will pull them both up the same thing. But our economy is falling way faster than that bowling ball. And so we are, it's looking, wow. Let's go back to the gang and see what they've been saying. Right? Let's see. Lena, yeah, for good and bad. Yep. Well, not right now. God dumped by my ex-10-year relationship, so right now it's mostly surviving mode. You know, you should be in the mostly happy mode. You don't have that moron with you, right? You know, and what you really need to look at, Lana, is, you know, thank you, God, that this moron has left me. You have to do a little, you know, go back and see why you were with that guy for that long when he was such. For any guy to leave you is beyond being a moron. You know. Get me an airplane ticket. I'd love to live with you in Sweden. You know, that country would take care of me, and I'd be good for that country. Sweden needs more Al Bob there, right? And you, Lena, need some Al Bob in you, right? And so you need to go back because you need to, whenever something of that nature occurs, the best thing you do is look at what occurred. You know, I think with my heart and feel with my head. So an emotional breakup like that is a feelings. It's an emotional thing. So you shouldn't be feeling it with your heart. You should be taking it apart, you know, forensically. So what happened here? What happened here? What happened here? What happened here? And if you were to go into state and put all that feelings that you have, I'm feeling it right now, just from that sentence, right? And right now is mostly surviving mode. No, you have to burn bright as the star that you are, the beautiful sun that you are, Lana. You are a beauty in, you know, all its essence, right? And the stain right there, telescope, sun, queen's hat, a big ring, a big pink heart, you know? And that's who you are right there. Jane jumped in and she sent back greeting to me, but that's who you are, Lena, right? Yo, dear Jane. Welcome, friend. Let's see, Alan. All good. Catch you on right, Alan. Sorry to hear your break in Atlanta. Same thing happened to me about 2 years back. 10 years together. Very painful. It is painful because but you guys are lucky. You've had, if they were good, like, so I was married twice, right? I had about 8 extraordinary women in my life that I was in long-term relationships. And in essence, I was married to those people because when I'm involved emotionally, I'm a surreal monogamist because my essence is, hey, if I'm going to be with someone, I'm going to be with them. I'm not going to be looking around for something better. I'm not going to, I mean, that's like a teenager's attitude, you know? Why, throw away a really exquisite bottle of wine for, a bigger bottle of Ripple, you know? And so, so anyway, so relationships are all about learning. So, Lena, what did you guys learn from those experiences? That's how you need to look at this. So anyway, my second wife, who was truly my twin flame, person I adored most, because she was hard to live with. She was, Aries, Capricorn, Scorpio. Meaning, wow. But she was brilliant. She was beautiful. She was amazing artist, amazing healer, amazing. She had the psychic juice up the kazoo, and every time we made love, it like her she was like the psychic slingshot. So I never made love like that, and we did it 3 or 4 times a day for the 10 years we were together, and then she died. She died very quickly, and luckily she died of a she died of, she basically, we went on vacation. She was a workaholic. It took me forever to get her to, and I took her to Tortola, and we spent a number of weeks there, where I went to a friend of mine who had this beach that just had a little shack, right? And there was no one else on that beach. And every morning he lived up on the hill, right? He had a farm, and he and his wife would come down with breakfast, beautiful coffees and cakes and yummy things to smoke and drink, and we'd that would be breakfast, and then we'd all go swimming. And then they were physical therapists in town. They had a business in town, and they sold their organic potions and foods, and gave massages to the rich folk, who the tourists, and would come back to their Garden of Eden, right? And so I took her there, and we had almost 3 weeks of unbelievable bliss, and she totally relaxed, and she was like, I see why you take vacations all the time. I mean, because you really do. I mean, there was no electricity, there was no phone, there was her no business. It was like her total downtime, right? She had a really good staff. She could leave. And I said, listen, you've had this business, 20 years. They can run this place without you. So this is the downtime. You're not really in the middle of the season. Let's go. So we did. And so she relaxed so much that when she came back, she got really sick. And instead of going to bed, she just worked and worked and worked. And then, she got really sick and had, a seizure, heart attack. And I took her to the hospital, and they said, she's dying of cancer. I said, what? This girl is the healthiest as a bull, and, no way that she, and they wanted to treat her with chemo, and I said, no, there's something else going on here. It's more her endocrine system. There's something, we just gone through this, and they would not listen to me, right? And then when I tried to treat her, they, so you can't, you're not really married to her, you didn't go to a church. And then she got really upset, and, all the little meters were like going through the roof, and then she died. So basically the medical model killed her, right? And that was, talk about a catastrophic loss. I haven't really gotten over it. That was, 1980, the 1980s. And emotionally, the story is a lot longer. Exactly. XRATTED. Go to my blog spot, and the story's there, because the story is so complicated. It would take me another 2.5 hours to tell you just that story. And I haven't even told you about how I left Asheville, with the police chief, right? I'm just reading what you guys have been saying. It's a little button here. Let's see. See, that's what I love about this. I go on and on over here telling you stories, and you guys are commiserating and energetically connecting off of the story I'm telling into your emotional selves. Well, I think, when my wife died, it was brutally quick, but it was good that it was brutally quick, Yep. We are all bugs here in the chorus, right? Paris, Morgan, higher pop stars there. Puppets. Well, pretty much if you're in the music business, you're a puppet. So all my adventures are shamanic tales, right? Of inspiration that you guys need to not copy, but have your own tales, right? Now, the tale of loss and grief is an important one, but you have to get from that loss and grief the more positive side to it. And again, what's the name of the show? Today's show is the good thing about being sick is that you appreciate being well. So, Alan, Anna, losing this love that you had for 10 years, you have to forensically look at it. What was good about it? What was bad about it? What was, and most people, when I was back in the day, had my single out as a counselor. I counseled a lot of married folk, right? And as I would forensically pick apart their relationship, I would realize that before these people even got married, they or went into this long-term relationship, they knew they were going to break up with this person. And that's one of the reasons that they went into the relationship with them was that they knew it was safe to go in there because they were going to break up with them anyway. My second wife told me this. My first wife kind of told me later, years later, right? Because both of them basically said, first off, I was really attracted to you physically, and that there was nobody else like you, and being with you was so much fun, and we did things that I never did. You brought me out of my shell and showed me the best things about me because that's what you loved about me, and that was the first thing, right? Second thing, and my second wife told me this almost right off the bat. She said, "Well, I'm with you because it took me a whole month to get her to even have a cup of coffee with me. But of course, when she said, 'Come on over for coffee,' we never got out of bed for the next 3 weeks. So, but she had just gotten divorced and she didn't want to get into another relationship. And yet, when we first met, we walked through New York City for 16 hours. We were at a New Age conference, and that's where we met. And we left there and just walked I took her to all of my favorite places in New York City, right? We just walked because we were in the Penta Hotel. We went over to the East River, and there's this great little walk from about 34th Street down to 16th Street. And you can jump off there. And it's a beautiful walk right along the river. It's above the FDR Drive. And we walked at that, and every so often I would jump off and we'd go to like a club or a bar or a restaurant. And I took her to Luna's at about 3 in the morning, right? Luna's the best Italian restaurant in New York City. It's in Little Italy down near Canal Street, right? And there's always a line like around the block to get in, right? And there's this dining room for that restaurant, and it's maybe 20 to 30 seats, right? And that's why there's a line, right? Because they don't kick you out, they don't just rush you out. It's like Italian. You have like 9 courses. Anyway, so that's that. But if you come from the other side, the next street over, there's a little alley. You come in that alley and you go into the kitchen and you go in that door, and the kitchen is almost bigger than the dining room because about a third of the kitchen is the kitchen. The other 2/3 is a dining room for mobsters and people connected, right? And so it's about 3 in the morning. She said, I'm really hungry. I said, okay, let's get off here and walk down. And we went through Little Italy, and there is a bread place that makes those crusty rolls. And I know those people, and I could, hey, and they put like a bunch of bags with butter and throw it through the window to me, right? And because Mike, Finelli owned that place. He was a mobster, and I was his electrician. So anyway, so there were a lot of people I knew of that ilk. So we went into, we went down the street and she grew up in that neighborhood. She knew Luna's, never went to eat there because there was always a line there. But she didn't know the alley. She didn't know, and we went in, and Grandma who ran the show, she go, oh wow, I was like her grandson. And who is this queen? Who's you finally got it? And and they started talking Italian, and she said, oh, I'm in heaven. My boy has found the girl of his dreams, and she was, right? And that was the first night, right? And so we did all that 16 hours, right? And then we spent a long time at Luna's. Then we walked down to the Battery, and I was living in. I still had my place on Pearl Street, but I also had an abandoned building on Avenue D, right? And so, I took her to that place, and I thought and she just thought, oh, this is quite interesting, right? And then she was ready to go. I mean, we were there for all of 5 minutes. I said, don't you want another cup of coffee? She said, no. What you were telling me at that place down off of Broadway was a really good. I said, okay, we'll go down there. So we went down there and talked to those people, and the waitresses were really funny. I've known them for years, and again, they were the same thing. Oh, he's finally found his right. And so that was our first date. I took her all for 16 hours work, and and during the day, she had to, instead of going back to her apartment, I mean, we went by her apartment. She said, "I've got to go to work," and so we went. But I had to stop at my apartment, so we stopped, and I said, I'll go up. And she said, no, no, you stay down here. So she goes up to the apartment. She spends about, I don't know, 20 minutes, showers, puts on new clothes, makes herself up. I mean, she was already gorgeous. She came back like freshly gorgeous. And then I walked her to her business, and she showed me her business, and she said, she showed me a few little electric problems she had. And I said, okay, I can fix that. And so anyway, she goes, well, you got to go. I got to get to work. So she threw me out. Took me a whole month, you know. She wouldn't let me to get up to her factory. You had to buzz yourself in. I'd hit the thing, and she said, hello. And I'd say, hi, I'd like to come up. Said, no, I'm too busy. I said, how about lunch? No, too busy. Right? I had her phone number. I'd call her up, and we talk and talk. She said, don't talk to me until after 8 p.m., and then you can call me, right? And anytime I called her before, she goes, I got to go. But at 8 p.m., we talked for hours about everything, right? And every time I would split, I'd say, honey, can tomorrow, can I take you to lunch? Can I take you to dinner? Can I? No, no, no. A whole month of me calling her every day. And then, 30th day, I said, okay, if I don't even get a cup of coffee, that's it. And I'm moving on. And so before I picked up the phone rang, and she said, what are you doing right now? And I said, whatever you want me to do. And she goes, well, come on over, and I'll buzz you up. So I ran about 40 blocks from, downtown to her Park Avenue apartment, hit the buzzer. She buzzed me up. I go up there. I walk down the hallway, and I smell this amazing rose scent. And I go to her apartment door that's, open a crack. I open it, and I close it, and she told me when I was buzzed in that she'd leave the front door open, and that when I walked through it, I should close it and lock the door. So I did. And she had votive candles and rose petals, a path to her bedroom. And, and all the lights were off except for the votive candle, and her bedroom was just full of candles and rose. She loved roses. And there she was on her gigantic bed with nothing on. And she said, come here. And from that night on, we never spent a night apart for almost 10 years, right? So we were as married as you could get, but she hated the church and she hated the state, so she wasn't going to go through that ceremony. But anyway, and the first time we made love, she went into trance and voices, she was spoken voices, right? And there was one that spoke English. Anyway, and it basically said, hey, we're putting you two together. You're two people that need to be together, but you're not meant to spend your life with each other. And really, we only want you together for about 6 months, and that will alchemically heal you and push you forward. And her heart was broken for many reasons, why I won't go into. She didn't trust anybody, and so she needed to heal her heart and get at least an element where she wouldn't be bitter, right? And that's what I was the medicine for, right? Anyway, so within, I don't know, a few weeks of us, we said everything to each other, and that was our lovemaking. We amazingly psychic bonding, but then we'd cuddle and talk for hours. She loved talking to me, right? And she loved doing stuff, meaning she never had time except for her business. And then, but she made time to do stuff with me, to go to art openings and hang out with my friends. And she was great because she would, everyone was scared of her, because she was not only, but she had an amazing sense of humor, and her beauty and her sexual magnetism was just off-putting, right? And so people who didn't know me would see me with her and they'd go, "What?" I mean, we would go to these openings at places like the Whitney and the Pew and other places that I was like somewhat connected to, and other entities. And except for the people who knew me, these rich, powerful, or people who thought they were rich and powerful, would like trying, "What are you with this guy? Come with me, baby." And she would just like step. I mean, I remember one time she had these high heel shoes that were more a weapon than a fashion accessory, right? And she just like she planted this her high heel right up on his foot near his ankle, nearly like went through his foot. And this guy, he left. He'd go to the emergency room, and that was her. Anyway, early on, she basically said, "I really like being with you because I know I can leave you. I don't need you. You're not part of my life, but I like you." That was basically what she said. And my second wife kind of said the same thing. And my first wife was like, "You do things for me that no one else has done. Like take care of her. Always support her emotionally, psychically, you name it." And I was her best fan. And also, I was in the art world, so I kind of injected her into the New York art scene. And and I had this amazing loft, and we were always traveling and doing amazing stuff. She really liked that. I got her into herbalism because she had a real knack for it, and the whole psychic and paranormal thing. She really loved going to the Theosophical Society. There were all these great women that she liked women too. Break up and take responsibility for my contribution to demise. Yep. I've had 2 years to concentrate on creative projects since. Right. Yep. I wouldn't have otherwise. Right. Yep. Near Nathan's. Yep. Good bowling ball analogy. Yep. And the stock market is not clawing back. What is happening here with the stock market is that it's the demise of the capital system, not capitalism, but the capital system, how things are monetized. And we are going to go basically, this whole thing is to get everyone on board to have your face as your commodity. You have to sign on. You're going to have to get the little chip right in this spot here, because if you put a chip right here, that is the nexus, the highway to your whole energetic system of your body. They put a little digital device that receives microwaves. You're going to become a robot. And so you're going to have that chip there and your face. And they already have stores. Google and Amazon have stores where you sign up. You have the chip on your credit card, or you have it in you, and they got cameras everywhere, and you put in on your cell phone what you want, right? And so you go in there, and they have the stuff already for you, and then you stroll around the store, and if you want a few more items, you throw them in, and there are no people there because everything has RFID chips. You walk out with it, right? And you don't have to give money. It all comes out of your account. And that's what this stock market crash is about. That's what this virus is all about. It is to force the human race into this new marketplace, right? And you're going to, they're going to and oh, we gotta, the guy is amazing. He lies so much, he can't help himself to tell the truth, and he goes, oh, yeah, we already got a vaccine. It's already, it's like out tomorrow, right? Well, no, but, that's not a good marketing ploy. He's not the man of the deal. Got a boogie on. Best to you and all the cadre. Have a great weekend, and thank you for being such a good company. Big hugs. Right. I'm always here for you, eh? And remember, everybody, get a hold of me at thedudeawake@gmail, and we can talk more specifically than me doing a stream of consciousness here. I know you love it, and it's my way. It's you guys, if you are practicing, uh, the meditation process of 20% in, 30% out. It will keep you from getting that virus or getting really sick, because if you're allowing the prana to go deep into your lungs, like doing that 20% in and that 30% out does, it's going to be very good for you, right? And then a few herbs, go online, see what birch bark is, and go to that what's that guy's name? Hyde. Go look at the shows I did about him. He's very good, as he understands what that this is a bioweapon, because that's where his discipline came from, and he's a big computer guy, so he's very good on the technique side. So anyway, the other thing I kind of want to show you. And the story of Asheville, I'll tell you later this afternoon. Right, I'm gonna end with this other little thing I wanted to show you. Oh yes. So this channel,
not even have the goods.
Let's see.
No one can pronounce this word when you actually look at it on the page, which kind of helps. And take the K out and the C out at the beginning and end and put Q's there. So no one can pronounce this word when you actually look at it on the page, which kind of helps obfuscate what it is, because you can't even say it. But the name of it is kinetic. Now, kinetic, Q at the end, Q at the last. Well, we like to say it's the queen from beginning to end, from Q to Q. It's also Q, who was in James Bond, the guy who invented everything, or the Q continuum, which was in, of course, Star Trek, which was the ultimate intelligence, or the Q clearance on 4chan and 8chan. And so you get to see that people love to use Q as a I don't even know, a definer of their high intelligence. Well, we looked at this, I looked at it and said, okay, this company seems very odd. They do a lot of stuff.
These are the guys who own the patent.
Well, that can't be true. So I assumed that it was just PR nonsense. Nope, it's true. They can do anything. Anything. From steal patents to spy on satellites to create new coronavirus retroviruses that can be a pandemic that can depopulate the world, that can have every type of satellite hookup link that you can possibly imagine. So that means that they're spying. They're connected to the military, and in a strange way, I couldn't believe it. I could not believe it, Michael, when your researchers uncovered this, and then
This channel's called Bob and Mike.
Where it was, and this character, Lord Purbright, which you're going to tell us about today. But I'm sorry, when this happened, my head exploded, and so that's the reason I have to talk about this today. To find out that Lord Purbright is Henry de Worms, whose father was Solomon de Worms, who was a Rothschild, and Solomon de Worms basically fleeced Salon, the entire island. And he's a Rothschild. And so he set up a beautiful example for Henry de Worms to come back to England and to do it there, and then basically to be, at least idealistically, a beautiful teacher for Cecil Rhodes. We were trying to figure out, where did Cecil Rhodes get all that evil, that imperialistic desire for empire to put everyone below them that isn't part of the Anglo-white race? We couldn't quite get that. We know about Lord Shelburne and others, and the British East India Company. But no, I had totally missed Henry de Worms. Never heard of him. Little did I know that the importance that he has in all of this. So you're going to try to take what I'm saying, which is a very broad picture, because what we're saying is Kinetic seems to be the place that Serco's information gets fed into, that Five Eyes gets fed into, that the British military gets fed into. In other words, this is like what we would call the rogue CIA. So this could be a rogue British intelligence group that creates viruses, that spies on everything that is digital, and has been doing this for a long time, and that these places in Pirbright are all connected, and it seems as if you have hit the jackpot of basically the Queen's corporate control of the British military, United Kingdom, Five Eyes intelligence sharing with America, and basically everything else. Because if you can create a virus, like look how many billions of dollars China is losing because a British virus got released somehow in China. So when you look at this, you can say, oh, the British have never stopped. They're the inventors of germ warfare. The British are. And if you invent something really great like that, then you're going to get the Order of the British Empire, or you're going to get knighted by the Queen. And for sure, no matter what, as long as this is, the land that is basically owned by Lord Pirbright, Henry de Worms, Rothschild, that it's also mixed with the military. So the Queen's immunity comes into this company, because it looks as if the Carlyle Group, when it folded, because everybody found out this group that George H.W. Bush joined after he was the president, and he went from being a millionaire to a billionaire in 1 year because they had 400 military contractors underneath one banner.
Anyway, these guys go on and on and on, and they got really good stuff. Again, all these really good sites that I talk about, you don't have to drink the Kool-Aid. Just take the information in and do the research for yourself. And by doing the research for yourself, you basically manifest. So the Q is for the Queens, right? And these guys are, I guess it's under the Crow House channel. So, that's interesting. Anyway, they're called Bob and Mike, right? And these guys go deep, right? And they really give a lot of good information. And, but again, it's like when you spend so much time digging this stuff up, you kind of lose perspective, because you're looking deeper and a little smaller and smaller. And so the thing I played earlier of Miss Ashley there, and the guy who wrote the book about Hollywood, they're both Orthodox Christians, and the Russian Orthodox Church I love, Orthodox Christianity I love, Christianity of any flavor I love, Judaism I love, Islam I love, Shintoism I love, Buddhism I love, Vishnu, Hinduism, all of the presence of the teachings of love's co-creation within all of those masters is I love. What I don't love is when a guy like Modi in India kills thousands of people, oppresses millions of people because of his, you know, religious beliefs as his context to give his prejudices and his lust for power. That's I don't love that, right? And pretty much every religion is that, right? The Vatican is that, you know, Israel is that, and Israel was never meant to be a religious state. It wasn't supposed to be the, you know, Iran of Judaism, and Iran, was a Persian state. And Muhammad was a prophet, and he taught the basic platform of Islam is charity, hospitality, and understanding through empathy. And most Muslims, that's what they are. And why Malcolm X was off was that he was a hard case Muslim, and as long as he was, saying Whitey was the devil, and but he went off to the Hajj and he saw that all the Muslims weren't all black; they were everybody, and he really had this religious conversion that Islam was about love, not revolution. Well, and the most revolutionary thing was love, right? And so when he came back and said, "Okay, hey, we got to let Wiley into our," and they already did, meaning his, and they called it the temple, right? And because the mosque was upstairs in the big, they had this big building, and they called the building the temple. And the one, and it was like a hotel. It was like, the concierge, and they had a place over here if you were hungry, a place over there. If you needed stuff like food and stuff for your household, there was like a supermarket over there. There was a medical place over there, and if you wanted to, get your GED or learn something, there was this place in the back was the school. And there were different things for different places for women, places for it was a community kind of center. He called it a temple, and upstairs, there was the mosque, but that wasn't it. It was all of this other stuff. It was a community, and there were white people there, not mostly black, but my grandma and I would go in there. We weren't like stretched out as evil Satan white people. Man, what do you need? You hungry? Here, what's up? And it was quite nice. And when we would go in there, there would be all these people behind the desk, right? Oh, what do you need? And if you needed something, they would take you there. My grandma's always up for a meal, and so and she'd always loved tasting other people's food. So she would go there, and we'd sit down with a guy or a girl, who would talk to us about what they were doing and what the community was, and wanted to know what we were up and what was our problem. And it was an amazing place. There was no reverse racism there, right? And but his teachings, when he would give his teachings at Central Park, he was pretty harsh about white folk, which was understandable, right? Because the temple was something different, the street was something totally different. So but when he came back from the Hajj, he said, no, we got to bring this our the energy of our temple out into the street. We have to love everybody. We have to, all our relations, Christians, Jews, Gentiles, whoever, we have to embrace, because that's the only way we're going to bring peace on earth. And that's when they killed him, right? And the guy who shot him, he was part of, the Islamic world per se, but not really, because that guy got to walk in there with a shotgun under his jacket, and they had security. They knew that X's life was being threatened, so they had security, but they let him in. And the guy who shot him was never really. A number of guys were gotten by the police, and then gotten rid of. But that guy, the gunman, was like an unknown. And the other guys who were caught were blamed, but that really wasn't the guy. So this always happens, and that's why I'm just your happy-go-lucky Sensei Bob. I'm just here to tell you stories. You are the cats and kittens that need to change the world, right? And I'm just giving you a little heads up. Like right now, like the title of this show says, it's the good thing about being sick. It makes you appreciate being better, right? And working towards being better. So you want to keep that coronavirus from. I mean, it's going to be impossible. This thing was designed for everyone on the friggin' planet to get infected. Period. That's what's going to happen, and in a very short period of time. But you don't have to get sick, right? And you don't have to take their medicine, right? Now they're going to pass a law where you have to, and and the market is being crushed because you're going to bring on a new economic system where your face will be your ID, and you're going to have to take that chip, right? And now there are a lot of preachers who are going Christian preachers, born again type of preachers. So, well, when the rapture comes and you're not taken up, that means you're going to have to experience the 7 years of torment, and so. To just live, you're going to have to take the mark. So it's okay if you take the mark, right? And that's being preached. And so, on a physical sense, they're kind of right. If you want to be part of that system, you're going to have to join it. But I would suggest not to. That's why I'm kind of living out here, and why I spent the last 2 years, training, just eating, leaves and dandelions and mushrooms and fruit that are growing around, and drinking teas from bark. So as long as I can do that, I will do that. But the other, I'm here to serve love's co-creation. So if love, if I am called to go into the beast and be that antigen, right? I will do that. Meaning, I'm all for the one person who's here first. I go hit the button to go live. Bingo, one is there. And who is that one but AI? It got an eye on me like nobody's business. So I'm talking straight to you. I'm ready to, hire me, give me, the black credit card, unlimited. I'm ready to live in that world again, and again, work for you, not serve you, work for you, because I serve love's co-creation, right? So yeah, everyone's got my picture. I don't need that little chip if I work for you on this level. My face is good enough. You're going to have enough people around me to, I won't be out of sight. But I understand that you're smart enough to realize that the end game isn't what you think it is. Nothing ever is. Nothing is as it seems to be. All of this stuff, this coming, forget coming apocalypse. It's right here, right now. It has been here, right now, since the Holy Roman Empire, give or take. And so the bottom line is there are elements in the hidden hand that realize that they need, because we're in a whole different energy. No matter how much 5G they're going to pump into you, it's not going to have the kind of desired effect that they are expecting, or that is being advertised. And again, love's co-creation made all of this illusion, right? And the only reality is love's co-creation. And so, if you see the movie The Matrix, it keeps going kind of back to that, our hero, when he goes and meets the architect, the guy's got this wall of TV sets of all the different Neos of all the different times that he's come and done this, right? And why the sun breaks through the clouds this time is that Neo realizes that you got to let it go and forgive and love, right? So I'm ready to go to work. I've been just hanging, but I'm doing this, doing this little outreach of Dreamy Dreamland with Sensei Bob. I got my little, the dude awake42 at Gmail, so you can get a hold of me, and that's the best way to get a hold of me. The phone, it only works when I'm in 20 miles away from here in a place I get a signal. And go read. I got a lot more stuff I've written, but the stuff I have up there on my blogspot, xratted.blogspot.com. Go to that, and you will see that it is all basically written in ancient. It's all metaphor. It's bard speak, not newspeak, bard speak, right? And you guys need me. You really do. The hidden hand needs me. And I would be glad to work for you. But and I know you would understand that that's all the other times I worked for you, I was still in service to Love's Co-Creation. And that's why I was able to give you the perspectives that I did, So I'm ready for employment. I need a new pair. Daddy needs a new pair of shoes, I'm getting too old to drive. I need a limo. I need a staff, and I have plenty of access, man. It's, I have no problem with getting that information, even out here in the middle of nowhere, right? But you're losing a great opportunity not employing me. So, get a hold of me. You've got my phone number. You got my Gmail. I hang out in 2 specific places at least once a week, where phone works, and you could ring a ding me and say, hey, Dr. Al, we're in your neighborhood. Can we come and have lunch? I'd say, sure, right? Then we could talk business, right? And I'm also, since I'm here to serve Love's Co-Creation, I know that my back is always covered. And I know when it's time for me to go home, it'll be a very nice, it's just slipping out of a slipper, right? So it's all good for me. I'm just here to serve. I'm just here because I love you guys, I love the chorus. I love the cadre. I love you all, So here, look at that. It's 2 hours, 22 minutes, and 22 seconds. So I'm going to go now, and I'll come back in the afternoonish sometime, 4 or 5, and tell you the story of a little more about Asheville and my police chief and my fun and games with the satanic murder crew and Satan's Highway that runs from what's the name? It's the town that President Woodrow Wilson. It starts with Salem, not Salem. It's up in the northwestern part of where 66 and 81 kind of meet. It was where they had the first women's, prison / mental institution. Starts with an A, S. And it's right on one of the points of the, star, satanic star, which is very similar to all the other stars that are used as a metaphorical symbol of power. What's the name of that? Not Salem. It'll pop into my mind. But anyway, so that's Satan's Highway. From that city all the way down to Johnson City, then hang a left and go to Roanoke. So 81 down to Johnson City, then go to down 26 to Asheville, and that's Satan's Highway. There's all of these nodes where really an intense satanic ceremony is pursued. And that's how I got into the Roanoke Valley. I was asked by this group of, they're not the Justice Department, but they all are people who had high positions there. They, I don't even know what to call them, star group. I mean, they don't do anything except look at what's going on and look at the real trends of things, and then use their power to ease, like a little, they're they're like the little pebbles in the pond that you, Cadre, are in their own kind of way. Try to do the right thing. I mean, they too serve, work, in for the hidden hand, but they try and serve love's co-creation. So I've worked a lot for people of that nature. Pretty much all of them. I mean, when I worked for the corporate guys, I mean, pretty much I was serving the corporate oligarchy, but the people who kind of steered me into the different projects and things I was doing were those kind of people who realized that my little presence would be a little more angelic light of love's co-creation than a total. I'd be more photonic, where everybody else was being incandescent. So anyway, look at that. I just roll on, and I just use another 4 minutes. Okay, so I'm out of here. I'm gonna go get lunch. Start a big pot of soup. Cut up some veggies. Okay.